Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion. Let's take a look at a video.
I can demonstrate to you that the Bible that you read, which is the King James Bible, contains forged verses. Now, if the King James Bible... John 1:5-7. There are three bear witness in heaven, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and these three are one. This is not found in any manuscript of the Bible until the 10th century.
So this is known as the Johannine Comma, and this is absolutely correct. It is not found in the actual body of any Greek or Latin manuscript of the Bible until a Latin manuscript from the 10th century CE. Prior to that, it is sometimes found scribbled in the margins of Latin manuscripts, as in this manuscript from the 9th century CE. Other than that, it's primarily found quoted by other people and in lectionaries and things like that, going back to a 4th century Latin text called the Liber Apologeticus. So scholars are in widespread agreement that this is a later addition that came from the Latin tradition. It's not quoted by the patristic authors. It's not found in early translations. It is found in other texts and then in margins of biblical manuscripts. Before 1,000 years after the text was written, it gets moved into the actual body of the manuscripts. Now, why is it in our King James Version of the Bible? Well, that has to do with the textual background of the King James Version. Prior to the beginning of the 16th century CE, all translations of the New Testament were based on the Latin Vulgate. A Dutch humanist scholar named Desiderius Erasmus changed that when he produced a dual column Latin and Greek New Testament, and this provided Protestants with a source text to translate the New Testament directly from the Greek. And so this is what Martin Luther used for his German translation. It's what William Tyndale used for his English translation. And in his first edition, Erasmus did not have the Johannine Comma. You can see here we have 1 John 5:7 in the first edition, and it just says what the texts say in modern Bibles. There are three that bear witness: the Spirit, the water, and the blood, and these three agree. In the third edition, Erasmus actually added the Johannine Comma. He said that he couldn't find it in any Greek manuscripts, and then lo and behold, someone turned up with a brand new Greek manuscript known as Montfortianus, and here is the page where you can see the addition of the Johannine Comma in the red box. And this was copied from a manuscript that did not contain it. And so most scholars think this was probably added to this Greek manuscript precisely to convince Erasmus to add it. And so the third edition of Erasmus's Greek New Testament, he called it the Novum Testamentum Omne. It would later become known as the Textus Receptus, finally contained the Johannine Comma. And this was the base text for later English translations of the Bible, including the King James Version, which was actually just a very conservative revision of the Bishop's Bible, an earlier English translation of the Bible. And the King James translators relied on Erasmus's third edition of the Textus Receptus in order to make their revisions. Now, the Bishop's Bible already had this as well, so they just didn't change it. But had they gone back to the first edition and decided that that first edition of the Textus Receptus was more reliable, they may have taken it out. But they didn't, and because of that, this passage is memorialized in the King James Version, and people think it is a more reliable version, and it is not. It is far less reliable. The newer editions of the Bible that omit this and usually 14 or 15 other passages from the New Testament are far more reliable and far closer to what was actually written by the authors of the New Testament.
So that makes it a fraud?
Yes, it means someone's put that verse in that wasn't there.
Why?
Why? Because whoever wrote that... I'll explain to you. Because Trinitarianism has not always been the only version of Christianity. But the Trinitarian Creed wasn't established for 400 years.
No, the Trinity always was.
No, it wasn't. There were Christians who didn't believe in the divinity of Jesus. There were Christians who didn't believe in Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
I would say this is accurate if we understand the notion of Jesus' divinity and the notion of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in the precise formal creedal sense of these three being consubstantial, co-equal, co-eternal persons within the one being of God. If we understand it more generically to mean just any sense in which Jesus is divine, then I would say there were not Christians who believed that. The main division was between the idea of Arius, which was actually the consensus view all the way up to the end of the 3rd and the beginning of the 4th century CE, which was that Jesus was a created being rather than a begotten being, and the difference there is made up. That there was a time when Jesus didn't exist, and that Jesus was subordinate to the Father. by the time of the 4th century, Greek philosophical frameworks had kind of pushed Christians to assert different ideas about Jesus, and the Council of Nicaea decided to leave Arius by the side of the road and carry on in a new direction. However, Arianism survived for a lot longer after that. In fact, we had an Arian emperor after that, and so there was a struggle for power for a couple of centuries before the idea of the Trinity finally settled down.